Hello, welcome to Voice in the Alexander Technique. I'm Alison Taylor, and today we're going to be looking at the torso. Specifically, the torso and its volume, its capacity. So some of the work that we're looking at today has been influenced by my studies with Babette Leitner and David Gorman. So you can check the links in the description of this video for more information about wholeness in motion, Babette Leitner's work, and the anatomy of wholeness, David Gorman's work. So you'll need a yoga mat or a towel to put down on a hard surface. So you're not going to do this on your bed or a crash mat. We're going to do this on a hard surface. And you may want to have a couple of paperback books or a folded up towel to place under your head. You can check out my other video about the spine and the torso and the head spine unlocking joint for some more body mapping details about the structure. But if you don't have any of that structural knowledge, don't worry, you don't need any anatomical knowledge to take part in this video. So find yourself a flat surface, a yoga mat, and something for under your head, and then you can come on down to lie on your back. Once you find yourself on your back with something under your head to support the head, just take a moment to find your ground here. So the knees are bent and the feet are flat on the ground. And for now, the hands can just be resting on the belly. Throughout today's video, we're going to use the breath and even maybe the voice as a barometer for how we're doing in terms of strain versus freedom. Don't worry if you're not a singer or an experienced voice user. You can still use your breath and your voice as a way to check in and assess how you're doing in terms of freedom through your whole torso and strain. It's actually a great thing to purposely experience strain or tension so that you can start to know the difference between when you are in freedom and support and when you're in a strain and coming away from the support of the ground. So right now, just allow your whole self to register being in complete support of the ground. Lying down in semi-supine or with the knees bent and the feet flat on the ground is a great way to give your back a rest and to actually register the free three-dimensional movement of your breath. Now in standing, there's a different kind of tone through the whole stature to support your uprightness. And we're going to play around with some of that tone through the central channel in the course of this video. But for now, just register free and easy movement of the breath, however that feels to you today, and the head supported on the towel or on books. Now to get a sense of what is my torso, what is my central channel, I want you to bring one hand to the crown of your head and the other hand to your sitting bones. So in a way, you're grabbing your own butt here, and you're also placing a hand on the crown of your head. So here, you're holding your whole torso. For the purpose of this video, we're going to include the head in the supportive base of your torso. So you're touching the sitting bone and you're touching the head, and here you are in length and width and depth and volume of your full torso. So just experiment with some breath sounds. Using the sound of an SH. Bring the hands back onto the belly, experimenting with some more breath sounds. Noticing the movement under your hands as you release your breath on the sound of an SH. As you play around with some more SH breaths, bring your fingertips up above the torso. So engage your imagination here. Imagine that you are a little sea anemone on the bottom of the ocean floor. And through the fingertips, you're sensing the water around you. You're searching for food, perhaps, or for interests, allowing the fingertips to sense the space around you. Perhaps the sound of your SH breath can influence the movement of your little tentacles. I'm outside, so I'm imagining the sound of the breeze through the trees is influencing how my little tentacles are searching the space around me. And just sort of objectively notice what happens through the torso base as you're moving the arms away from you and back towards you. So you're gathering food and nourishment and bringing it back to your center. Maybe even incorporating some voice sounds. Does the voice feel free and easy? Does it feel stuck or strained? Let's purposely go into a strain to start to feel what that feels like. So instead of allowing those little tentacles to move freely, now you're going to reach the arms. You might even start to feel some engagement in the abdominal area or in the torso center as you reach. You can even hear it in my voice. Then come back to being supported by the ground, letting go of the reach, and try the same voice sounds in your own register, in your own comfy notes. Ooh. Again, come into a strain where you're trying to reach the ceiling with your fingertips. Ooh. Yee. And back into support, being supported by the ground, no extraneous effort or strain. Ooh-wee. Ah. You may want to pause the video here and deliberately come in and out of a strain, just so that you can start to really feel the differences between I'm moving my limbs and making sound in full support of the ground, and I'm moving my limbs in a strain, noticing the sensations of effort associated with that compared to the lack of that effort. Okay, so once you've experimented a little bit with the arm limbs, now we're going to incorporate the lower limbs, the legs. So float one knee and then the other directly over the torso base. And we're going to imagine the same little feelers are on the tips of your toes that we have on the tips of your fingers. So notice we're not just moving the arms and legs, because that's a brain-directed activity, but rather we're moving from our imagination. I'm a little sea anemone, or perhaps you're a little seaweed, and you're just going directly above the torso base. You may already notice that as soon as we float the knees up over the torso, there's an engagement that happens through the center of you. We're not gripping in the abdominal muscles, because as you can hear in my voice, there's a strain. Rather, we're allowing the leg limbs to come over the torso and just allowing that knitting or that engagement to happen through the torso naturally. Okay, so this is a very important distinction between doing a stomach crunch, so try that. Oh, and try that same voicing. And then let go of that extra stomach crunch effort and simply allow the limbs to float above the torso. Allow the engagement to happen in order to support the leg limbs. This has some applications to standing as well, which we'll explore in another video. But for now, just registering that engagement in the front of the torso. We're going to do a little roadmap here. Bring one hand onto the pubic bone. So below the navel, travel the fingertips down from the navel until you reach a bony part. That's your pubic bone. Bring the other fingertips to your sternum, to the bottom of the rib cage, to the xiphoid process. So you have spongy, 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 guts, 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 and then you start to feel boniness of your sternum. So that's the area we're talking about. So we can move those further apart by arching the back. So think of taking your pubic bone towards your feet and your sternum towards your chin. That's going to create an arch in the back. This is a really common standing posture with an arch in the back. Then release that to where you just feel like you're in support of the ground. Then we can do a classic stomach crunch where we try to bring the pubic bone and the sternum together. So that's crunching in the front. So if you're doing your breathing or your sounding in this experiment, just find that distance between the pubic bone and the sternum, just distorting the volume of your torso by moving them further away from each other, trying to move them towards each other. You may want to pause the video here, experimenting with distorting that volume with strain versus release of strain in support of the ground, just to experiment between those two extremes. Once you've done that a few times, you can float the leg limbs back up over the torso and just continue to explore the space with your toe feelers, your little tentacles exploring the space around you, noting there's a tone through the central channel, through the torso, and ask yourself, is this tone still allowing me to breathe freely in a three-dimensional way? Can I still sound with freedom and openness through that whole central channel? Even as I'm exploring the space and allowing that tone. Because when we're standing up on our 2 feet and singing or using our voices, there's an engagement, right, through that whole central channel in order to support us. But sometimes in standing, we get into some kind of distorted postural shape for singing or speaking. That's actually going against just simply allowing a natural tone through the whole of me as I'm sounding. So we can explore this in another video standing, but just experiment here as you take your limbs further away from the torso. The whole torso will engage in order to support that movement of the limb away from the torso. If we lose that good engagement or that support through the torso, we go into an arch. Can you see how my back comes up off the ground? My pubic bone moves away from my sternum and there's a strain. Whereas if I continue to check in with that engagement, it will just happen. There's going to be more activity here to support this leg way out away from my torso, but there's not that same arch because the pubic bone, sternum distance is just maintained. This also impacts sternum to back of throat distance. If I go into a strain, you can see there's an arch and a tension through here versus simply allowing my head to be supported by the books. Maintaining that distance between sternum and back of throat. So So these are some landmarks you can work with on the ground. It's really recuperative, and if you're experienced in just your constructive rest practice, you might want to add some of these movements into your practice to incorporate a little more breath and sounding work. So thank you so much for joining me for this little exploration of the torso, the central channel, the volume of the torso, and our capabilities for sounding while moving, keeping that engagement in a healthy way as opposed to bearing down or adding strain to create sound or support the voice. So keep tuning in for my weekly videos. I hope you subscribe so you never miss a video. And until next time, enjoy the sun wherever you are. Thanks, take care.